Good morning, everyone. Let's see. All right. Can someone let me know that you can hear me, please? You can use the chat too. Fantastic. All right. And you can see the screen. All right. Awesome. I'm just going to admit some people into the meeting here. Just some housekeeping items before we get started. This meeting will be recorded, is currently being recorded, and the recording, as well as all the slides we cover today, will be posted onto the Employee Resources page. All right, it looks like we're good now with the waiting room. Okay, so welcome everybody to the VCAP Program Year 26 update webinar. Like I said, this meeting is being recorded and the slides will be shared. Just as a housekeeping item, please mute your microphone just to cut down on the background noise. And we'll go ahead and get started now. Maybe. Okay. All right, today we're going to be talking about the association board's role in VCAP and their continued role in VCAP, the program year 26 submission schedule, as well as the programmatic kind of review of things that haven't changed and some updates, form reviews and updates, and then we'll dive into the VCAP manual, which we're now on the 10th edition. There were some programmatic changes and also BMP specification updates. We will dive into that. Oh, nice. All right, so the VCAP schedule for program year 26, really nothing has changed to the general monthly schedule. Applications and payment request materials are still due 2 weeks prior to the steering committee meeting. The water cooler chats will be held the Tuesday before the submission deadline each month. The revision deadline is something that has been in place for quite a while now. This is an opportunity to revise anything that needs edited and pointed out by association staff prior to steering committee review. There were a couple of adjustments to avoid holidays, but the biggest change this program year is that the December water cooler chat and steering committee meeting is canceled in December for the association annual meeting. To recap on kind of the association board's role in VCAP, state funds are still passing through agencies to the association, and the association continues to have full oversight of VCAP. There were some formality changes that have already occurred. So the association board, based on recommendations from the steering committee, approves the VCAP manual. They just approved the 10th edition VCAP manual last week at their quarterly board meeting. VCAP also has a more structured program year timeline. It has been updated to better align with the VAX timeline. So things like call for steering committee membership and TAC membership are now structured and will happen on a yearly basis. And the feedback survey will be released around the same time as VAX to collect programmatic feedback that we can carry into new manual updates. The VCAP manual will be updated yearly, so there will be a new VCAP manual for each program year moving forward. The association board also approves the membership of both the steering committee and the technical advisory committee. You may have seen some emails in the past few months about the call for membership. So this will be happening on a regular basis when terms are up for re-election. The terms for each of these committees is 2 years. There were no changes to reimbursement rates or caps currently. There are a couple of things I just wanted to point out that are not new, but deserve some notes. There are variable lifespans available for select practices. So conservation landscaping, rain gardens, dry wells, and rainwater harvesting could opt for a 5-year or a 10-year contract. The length of the lifespan impacts the reimbursement rate, not the reimbursement cap. So again, this is nothing that has changed, just something that I wanted to bring to your attention in case you forgot. There have been no changes to Part 1 or Part 2 of the contract. But while we're here, I wanted to point out a couple of things just as a gentle reminder. The applicant's signature on Part 1 and the district staffer's signature on Part 2 are required for steering committee submission with the application. The box below that, the authorization, is really denoting the district board approval. This is required prior to notifying the participant of approval and thereby start of work. Steering committee approval and local district board approval are both required before notifying the participant of approval and before start of work. The order in which you obtain local board or steering committee approval does not matter, but both need to be obtained before the participant is aware of their approval or notified of their approval. Page 2 of Part 2 is the applicant's signature. This is required after steering committee approval and local board approval before they start work. So these are no changes, just noting some things for clarity. There was one small change to Part 3 of the contract. Spaces to note the contract lifespan start date and end date were added. Just as a reminder, the lifespan start date begins January 1st of the year following steering committee approval of the payment request. All right, and while we're here, just a reminder again, this technical certification is the district staffer's signature, noting that the practice has been installed as approved. It is required with the payment request submission to the steering committee. One thing I want to note about signatures is that they should be either wet or digital, meaning electronically stamped signatures. They should not be typed. The Soil and Water Conservation District space on page 2 of Part 3 must be a district director's signature. This is required to note prior to notifying the participant of payment approval and actually dispersing cost share funds to the participant. And obviously the participant needs to sign as well before cost share is dispersed. There was one tiny change on Form 4, the agreement transferring BMP responsibility. There is now a space for an email. Not sure why that wasn't there before, but it is there now to hopefully make it easier to contact the present and new landowner. There were no changes to Form 5 or Form 7. If you notice, I have skipped over Form 6, which is actually the ranking sheet. So there were some changes to both the rank and the ranking sheet this program year. The minimum ranking score effective July 1st this year will be 65, so it's increasing from 55 to 65. And there is an entirely new ranking sheet. The goal of this new ranking sheet was to really improve clarity for district staff using the sheet and reduce some of those common errors that we see pretty frequently. Adding clarifying language was a large update. Another update that we focused on for this ranking sheet was to take into account inflation. So really looking at that cost effectiveness calculation and ensuring that we're being fair and up with the times. The previous ranking sheet had not been updated for quite a while, so we have to keep up with what's going on in the world. There is another feature in this ranking sheet that was specifically created to reduce the penalty for smaller parcels that select conservation landscapings as their BMP. So it's really meant to provide an opportunity for very small parcels to qualify, if possible, while maintaining preference for structural BMPs. So right now I'm going to stop sharing and I'm actually going to share the ranking sheet for just a second. All right, hopefully everyone can see this. This is the new ranking sheet. The cells in green are those that require data entry of some kind. Most of these cells are drop-down menus, so you can select and leave it at that. Your points will be added to the column on the far right, so no typing in numbers for your score or anything like that. No zeros and ones anymore. Everything is a drop-down menu, except for the numerical entries. So you still gotta type in your district contract number here. Right. The structure of the sheet is similar to the previous sheet. The column on the far left denotes the ranking criteria. The actual ranking criteria has really not changed. It has just been clarified. We have seen a lot of the same mistakes over the years, so we want to really allow for the most clear process here. Just lost my screen. Can everyone see the ranking sheet still? Just want to make sure.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, so again, the first column is the ranking criteria. There is now a secondary column that is a description that allows for further clarification of each one of these selections. I want to put in a few numbers just as a very quick example of the new feature for conservation landscapings. I will be uploading and sharing a full tutorial on how to use this, so don't feel like you need to learn everything right this second. This is really just an exposure to the new sheet here. I'm going to make some selections here. You see clarifying languages all throughout this sheet now. There are ranking criteria that are not applicable to certain practices. That is clearly stated. Let's see. Okay, so I have a rank here. You'll notice the cell is green. That means you rank. That means it's above 65, okay? I'm going to trigger it to add a new option now. Oops. Right. Select a different resource concern. Again, if you try to type anywhere else, it's going to lock you. So you really can't mess this sheet up, which is great. That's what we want. Say, let's keep that. All right, so let's say your practice does not rank It's red, it's below 65. You'll notice in this ranking sheet now, there's a space here for a new criteria. And the criteria is the unforested pervious area of the total parcel. This is the section that is really targeted to giving some extra help to conservation landscapings that are on small parcels. It's giving points for the proportion of available space being converted to a BMP. So if they only have 1,500 square feet available to place a BMP, and that's how much they're using, they get 10 points for that. Realistically, that's not what it's going to look like every time. Let's say it's more realistic like this, but still it bumps it over the ranking score of 65. What you'll notice here is that this only appears for conservation landscapings 1, 2, and 3. So this applies to meadows, tree plantings, and mixed planting beds only, and only if they don't rank at a 65 without this. So this is a particular situation. This criteria will appear. I'm going to take a second to come to the next tab. There is a secondary tab on the ranking sheet now that says read me, so you should read it. It outlines the criteria, the purpose of that criteria, again, that description, and then it gives a deeper explanation. So hopefully alleviating some questions up front while you're using the sheet. There are also links that will take you straight to different sources where you can check whether the BMP is located in a sediment or nutrient TMDL or within an MS4 phase 1 or 2. So you can copy and paste these right into your browser and determine that criteria. I'm going to stop sharing and put my back up here. All right. So again, the rank is 65. There is a new ranking sheet, a tutorial outlining this ranking sheet and specifically when and how to use the conservation landscaping unforested pervious area criteria. That will be posted on the website. We will also share it out via email, along with the other resources we talk about today. Okay. There were no changes to the SUP structure or Forms 8 and 9. As a reminder, SUP offers 50% of the eligible cost share upfront at the time of application approval by the steering committee. This is really to ease the financial burden of a fully reimbursable program. Districts have to opt into SUP to offer it to their participants. So the district can opt in one or two ways. There is an MOU, a sample MOU on the employee resource page. The district board would agree to that MOU with the association. The second way is to record a motion in the district board minutes detailing participation in SUP, and that needs to be shared with the association. There was one clarification in the manual that we'll get to in just a second. But if the application is conditionally approved by the steering committee, those SUP funds cannot be released from the district to the participant until the applicant or participant has acknowledged the conditions of approval and those required revisions have been approved by association staff. There were no changes to the assignment of payment authorization form either. As a reminder, the assignment of payment allows districts to direct the cost share payments directly towards the technical provider or contractor using the assignment of payment authorization form. It functions the same in terms of W-9s. Whoever is receiving the payment, that is the W-9 that you need. and the 1099 will follow the recipient of that payment. Biggest thing to note here is that the assignment of payment form can only be used to direct pay one payee. So cost share payments cannot be split between two or more parties. A portion of it cannot go to the applicant or the participant, and the other portion to the technical provider. It must be one payee. This can be used in unison with SUP. Again, those two payments then, the SUP payment and then the final payment, must go to one payee. These are not changes, just friendly reminders. Now we can dive into the manual. Again, we're on the 10th edition, which is kind of nuts. This is for use in program year 26 only, so it will become effective July 1st, 2025 through June of 2026. There were some changes to part one. Part one is the program development and implementation. The first change is that tribal lands may be eligible for cost share within participating soil and water districts. And there was clarifying language regarding the board oversight of VCAP. Again, the board has always had oversight over VCAP. This language is just clarifying their role, that they approve the manual, they approve the steering committee, and they approve the technical committee. More changes to part one. I'm not going to read all of these. These are just the text from the manual itself, but overview, the steering committee roles and responsibilities. There was an addition of recusal guidance suggested by the OAG to avoid any conflicts of interest. There was also clarification under the participant's responsibility, specifically with respect to land ownership changes. When land ownership changes, there are one of two options. The participant can pay back a prorated amount of the cost share to the association by the district, which is how it works now. The other option is that the participant can complete a Form 4. Form 4 requires the new landowner to take responsibility of the BMP, and it transfers that contract to the new landowner. If the new landowner does not wish to sign Form 4, then it defaults to option 1, which is repaying a prorated portion of the cost share back to the association by the district. We heard lots of feedback. We received lots of feedback about the May completion deadline for projects. So prior to now, projects that were completed in a calendar year had until May of the following calendar year to complete their projects. We were able to negotiate reporting deadline changes that allow for a June completion deadline. So at this time, any project completed in 2025, for example, will have a June 2026 completion deadline. And we have already talked about the SUP payment process there. But again, if the application is conditionally approved, the district will hold that payment, that SUP payment, until all of the conditions are met. Further clarifying language has been added regarding the eligibility of multiple BMPs and contiguous BMPs. So cost share funding is for the initial installation of a VCAP BMP. Any applications seeking additional funds to expand an existing VCAP BMP will not be accepted. So contiguous BMPs are not eligible for multiple cost share payments. There were no changes to part 2 of the manual, which is the stormwater overview section. There were changes to part 3, which enters the eligible best management practices section of the manual. The TAC and Steering Committee provided clarification on the Form 5 release agreement. So Table 3 was really updated in two ways. Vegetated stormwater conveyances now have two parameters that fall into the Form 5 clarification, and green roofs were added as well. There were a few BMPs that had minor revisions, typographical corrections, that kind of thing, and a few clarifications. So for impervious surface removal, there was a clarification that the removal of stone or rock mulch is not an eligible impervious surface to remove. For conservation landscaping, the purpose was clarified. It specifically states now that the practice is not intended to replace existing landscaping or foundational plantings, which is how it's been functioning, but now it is actually written down in the manual. There has been a note added to direct applicants to the Virginia Department of Health for rainwater harvesting regulations. All VCAP participants must comply with local, state, and federal ordinances. This is just pointing them towards the VDH to ensure that they follow those regulations that they need to. Infiltration practices. The restriction of parking or vehicular traffic over the practice was removed. For permeable pavement, there's a clarification on the use of fill material and the appropriateness of under drains for soil groups C and D. Living shorelines removed language that was potentially a relic of previous manuals, but it included conflicting language on contiguousness. So that has been removed for clarity. Constructed wetlands is one that was just updated with formatting changes. The TAC is to review this spec section along with the steering committee to bring it in alignment with the Virginia Stormwater Management Handbook. That review will be done in program year 26 or release in program year 27. There were two spec sections that really had major revisions to bring them in alignment with the Virginia Stormwater Management Handbook. Vegetated stormwater conveyances was the first one. So the purpose has been clarified that vegetated stormwater conveyances must be implemented to enhance existing channels or swales and shall not be used to create new channels or swales that alter established drainage flow paths. The subtypes of VSCs have also been just updated, not changed. So we still have dry swales, wet swales, and step pool conveyance swales. These step pools are a subtype in the handbook under regenerative stormwater conveyances. So that clarification has been made as well. Site criteria for each subtype is outlined. Dry swales are still for those areas that infiltrate water well. They have a separation between the bottom of the excavation and the water table of at least a foot, and a separation from the bedrock to the bottom of excavation by 2 feet. Again, just bringing this up to be in alignment with the handbook. Wet swales are obviously wet, so they are still for those areas with poorly draining soils or water table interference. Step pool conveyance swales. The contributing drainage area has been increased from 25 acres to 50 acres, and clarification that these are most often applicable to small headwater ephemeral swales, below outfall pipes, or steep gullies. The longitudinal site slope of 5% is recommended, so that is a new guidance there. The design slope is also specified. However, there are grade control structures and additional settling pools that can be used if it's above 5%. There is now a section under the design criteria that is general to all types, and then there are subtypes under each of those. So the section that is applicable to all types includes the spacing, the suggested spacing for plantings, the density of plantings. There is guidance on engineered soil media and how to do that in a DIY way. So this has been added. Updates to the design plan component sections have also been made, as well as operation and maintenance sections. And the technical references have been updated. Green roofs were also pretty heavily updated by the TAC-IN Steering Committee. Again, bring it into alignment with the Virginia Stormwater Management Handbook. There are really two types of green roofs outlined in the handbook. This manual is specifically targeting the extensive green roofs, which are the shallower options. The design criteria no longer specifies a minimum square footage practice area. It was previously 200 square feet. That has been removed. There has been guidance added on the growing medium. The operation and maintenance section has been updated, as well as the technical references. And there is also a sample plant palette for green roofs now. These are just suggestions, kind of giving people a place to start. They are only permitted for the green roof BMP, and it's just a place for folks to start. So those are the major spec revisions. I want to leave a few final reminders. Both the slides presented today and the recording of this webinar will be posted to the employee resources page. The 10th edition of the VCAP manual will be available on that page next week. Please review it and ask questions. This webinar was not to get into the nitty-gritty of things. It was really to expose and start the ball rolling into Program Year 26 on a positive foot and set us up for success. So once the manual is posted, please review it and please reach out with any questions that you have. This is just the beginning of the conversation. Happy to discuss more about anything. The minimum rank is now 65. There will be a tutorial on the new ranking sheet, including when and how to use the CL 1, 2, or 3 unforested area criteria. That will be shared and posted on the website. And finally, if you would like a hard copy of the manual, there is a link to request it. We will only be ordering printed manuals if it is cost effective to do so. So if you really want one, please make sure you request it. That link will be posted along with the other information provided today. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second.